Hello, and welcome to the Sex and Relationships podcast. I'm so pleased you can join us. This is the podcast where we draw on our years of experience as sex and relationship therapists. I'm Clare Prendergast, and I'm here with my colleague, Janet Eccles. Hi, Janet.
Hello, Clare.
We're kind of meeting to chat about all things sex and relationships. And today we said, let's talk about what is sex anyway?
I thought this would be a good place to start in this series of podcasts because it seems to be the most basic and fundamental question of all. And it's really interesting, I think, to start off any conversation about sex, about sexual problems or issues or compatibility or whatever it is that you're talking about, to talk about, okay, right, let's start at the beginning. What is it? What does it mean to you? What's it for? And I think very commonly that the first response, understandably, that many people will give is, oh, I've never really thought about that before.
Yeah. What is sex for you and what is its purpose in your life?
Exactly.
And I think, what I just love about that question is the way it just immediately opens up the space for difference to be in the room and difference to be okay. Yeah. Because essentially, what sex is for me is highly unlikely to be the same as what sex is for you. And if we did a straw poll in our little communities, I'm sure we'd get 100 different answers from 100 different people.
Yeah, and how good is that?
Yeah. That is the good news, isn't it? But it isn't the context that most of us hold when we think about ourselves and our sex lives. We tend to think there is a right way to do sex. There is a way that sex should be. And if I'm not experiencing sex in that way that my mind has it, then something's wrong.
And I think that forms the basis of a lot of the problems that we work with in our practice with our clients. That sex has to be this particular way, and because me or I'm not managing it or it's not happening like that in my relationship, then clearly there's something wrong either with me or my partner or whomever I'm having sex with. Therefore, the psychological aspect and the anxiety that can produce of, oh, I'm not doing it right, I think forms a really substantial part of our work, actually.
Yeah. And really, what is sex? When I asked myself that question, I just went straight into PIV sex, which is, penis in vagina. That is what sex is. And, as a bisexual woman, it was kind of like, oh, really? So same-sex people don't have sex? It was just such a ludicrous, but it was like an automatic place my head went. Yeah. Sex is intercourse. And of course, it isn't. Intercourse can happen during sex, but it isn't sex.
Exactly. It's so much more besides that. And I guess if we looked at the definition of sex in a dictionary, it would say something along the lines of it's sexual intercourse and it's between two, hopefully consenting adults, and it involves intercourse or penetration in some way. And of course, one of the things that we do as psychosexual therapists is we try and broaden the landscape of what sex means and different sexual behaviours and play that is actually comes under this umbrella term of sex. When I ask that question to people that I work with in terms of what does sex mean to you, what's it for, I get a number of different answers. I'm sure you're the same, Clare. Mm-hmm. A lot of time people will say, well, it's physical pleasure and it's fun and it's great for busting stress. And other people might say, well, it's about being physically intimate and physically close with my partner. Or it might be about bonding and, and knowing that actually if we're doing it, if we're having sex, that we know that we're okay, aren't we? But I guess we both know that, a lot of people can have a lot of bad sex and unsatisfying sex. And therefore, maybe that reliance on, we have intercourse once a week on a Tuesday night, 11 o'clock at night. We're both exhausted, but we're okay, aren't we? Because we're doing that. And very early, really important part of our job is to, let's just have a look at that and let's see if the way that you are operating sexually, in this case in a relationship, actually is the way that's going to give you the most contentment and fun and closeness, that actually that's the thing that you're craving.
And the sense that your sex life is yours. And working out what that looks like for you is the work. It's not something you can, as you said, go to the dictionary or go to Pornhub or canvass your friends to find out what you should be doing for your sexual pleasure. The work is actually checking in with yourself and your partner and working out, what do we want for our sex life and what do I want for my sex life? Because obviously that's also a big chunk of our work, isn't it? When you have a couple and one person wants to have sex to stress bust and let off steam and forget all their problems, and the other person only wants to have sex when there's time and space to be really, really close and connected and take a long time. And it's like, if you're just wanting to get one off for stress busting, it's kind of like you've got to cross purpose.
Yeah. I think it was Bernie Zilbergeld in his really excellent book, New Male Sexuality. He talked about, look, you can have a cup of coffee and a cookie sex, or you can have a 7-course banquet sex. And both of those and everything in between is fine. But it's the important thing is checking out, what am I in the mood for? What are you in the mood for? What should we do today? And then drawing on, hopefully, a quite wide repertoire of physical behaviours, physical acts, ways of relating to each other, which actually may go from kissing a cuddle on the sofa, or a foot massage, or having a bath together, or a shower together, or right up to, the most energetic and passionate intercourse. For me, all of those things fit into this definition, the parameters of what a sexual relationship can be. And always, I really encourage the people that I work with to think, okay, what am I in the mood for? What's going to work for me today? What are you in the mood for? Oh, you want to do that? Okay, don't know if I'm there yet, but you know what? How about this? And to have the communication skills to enter into a kind of a negotiation, but in a fun way.
And I think, you used the magic word there, Janet, the communication word. Yep. And the difficulty, I think, with sex is that because, we'll talk about this in subsequent episodes, but there's so much mythology around it. And words like normal, natural, spontaneous, easy, these are some of the myths that folk have been fed. And when they come into a room and talk to us or are listening to this podcast and hear words like negotiation, communication, they're not automatically sexy words.
True.
And yet they are the cornerstone of having a really fun, vibrant, dynamic sex life.
But what is sex if it isn't communication? Because that's another really important function of sex, don't you think? It's about communicating. 100%. So you might be communicating nothing more complicated than, I find you really attractive and I want to have energetic, passionate intercourse with you right now. Or actually you might be saying, I just want to be close to you and I want to feel good and I want to give you some pleasure. Sex is communication.
It is, but I guess I am speaking old-fashioned talking communication, that being able to either before, during or after an encounter, ideally afterwards, actually, I think it can be really helpful to let each other know, oh, I really liked that, or that was a bit awkward, or that was funny, or that was really, really hot, or so that you build an understanding together of what gets you going and what really sets you back.
And I guess what goes along with that, Claire, is that if you have a strong sexual relationship, and this obviously is in a relationship context, it has to be okay for sex to go wrong sometimes. 100%. Do you know that sometimes it can be disastrous? Yeah. And to be able to sit with your partner and then say, well, we won't be doing that again. I think we'll try something else next time, and be able to laugh about it. And then it's not taken so hugely personally that I've failed in some way. And I suppose that brings us back to a lot of the work that we do, which is making sex safe again. Not because there is abuse or aggression or violence at play, but because it's about being confident, assertive, and just able to communicate some of this stuff.
When sex stops being about what we're talking about, which is sort of various behaviours, things that you do, and becomes meanings. If you don't like what I like, then, fill in the gap. You don't love me. We're not compatible. We're not going to, we're not right together. This isn't meant to be. You don't love me. As opposed to right here, right now, I'm not feeling it. I might have done this morning. I might tomorrow, but right here, right now, this isn't working.
Absolutely,
and it's that
Claire.
willingness to keep coming back and trying again and trying, and just it's so tempting to go, oh, we tried that once, and then that's it. The door's slammed on it because there's so much pain that can be felt, rather than. Yeah, we tried that once and then we tried it again and then we tried it again. And each time there's a slightly different nuance and we're talking and deconstructing and learning about our own bodies and each other's bodies as we go.
And isn't that the sadness of what we do, that many sexual problems are caused by that miscommunication and misunderstanding and making meaning where there is nothing more than, oh, I've had an exhausting day, or it's the time of the month, or we had a conflict earlier and you're over it and I'm not, and I'm still feeling, there are so many things that can get in the way. Mm. And I suppose I also wanted to talk a little bit more about this phrase proper sex, that if you're not doing this, it's not proper sex. And so I don't know if you ever hear this in your room, Claire, but the idea of two people say, well, we've not had sex for a year, and then you might sort of say, okay, has there been any physical contact? And they might say, oh, yeah, we do oral sex. And, we use hands and fingers and we use vibrator. And you're like, that's not proper sex, because I would call it proper sex. So then, having that conversation about, well, what constitutes proper sex? And of course that feeds into everything that we've just been talking about. I mean, I would also include things like fantasy sharing or role play, but actually also flirting in the kitchen, having a bit of, sexual banter. And all of that is that affirmation and reaffirmation of we're in this and we're in a relationship where we do this thing that is special to us. Now, obviously, also, that's not all people. Lots and lots and lots of people aren't in relationships. And to them, sex will have a different meaning. And we will talk about that as well, of course.
I mean, it's interesting, this term proper sex. I mean, the word that I hear a lot is normal. that in some way I'm abnormal because I'm not doing X, Y, and Z. And if I was, then I'd be normal. And I think it's a cousin of proper. It's like, let's just debunk it. My sex life is the sex life that suits me. And your sex life is the sex life that suits you. And you referred to single people there. Do you know, it could be that your sex life is red hot all by yourself. Mm-hmm. It could be that you're in a relationship, but you've negotiated a non-monogamous setup or a polyamorous setup, and you might have different kinds of sex in the different contexts. They're all, quote unquote, proper sex.
Absolutely.
It's the sex that suits you at the time. And that's the thing, is like it's the good news and the bad news, really. It's coming back to self and checking, am I doing what I want to do? Is this okay with me? Is this giving me pleasure? And if there's a no to any of those questions, then that's the problem, not whether or not what you're doing is proper or improper. It's that you're out with yourself and you're not being true to yourself in your intimate life.
Yeah, 100%, Claire. And I guess that comes down to, well, what did we learn about sex when we were growing up and we first became aware of this thing? And how did we learn about it? How did our families deal with sex? What did we learn about it from them, or watching pornography as teenagers, or learning from religion, or what did we learn to play? You know, all of these messages, of which there will have been thousands and thousands of them when we were growing up, they all implant a little seed in our minds, in our developing minds as teenagers, as we hit adolescence and puberty, and somehow we begin to form these ideas of what good sex is. And that often is not about self-permission.
What is sex really, I think, as a question, is what age we are now. Because the idea of what is, quote unquote, good sex in our late teens, early 20s, even through our 20s, is going to be really different in our 50s and 60s, and then different again in our 70s and 80s. But the truth is, we can have sex across our lifespan, and we can have good sex across our lifespan, but it's not going to be the same activity. We're not going to be doing the same thing at our different life stages. And so debunking any notion that we picked up in the playground of what sex is crucial for our ongoing pleasure and evolution in this area.
And we might well be doing some things at 70 that we were doing at 15 because we enjoy them. But it might also be that we grow out of them, or different things excite us as we get older and we have different influences and different experiences in our lives, whether it's sexual or other things. You know, we might see something in a film that really excites us. But you're right, we sort of go through this shedding process and building process throughout our lives like we do with every other thing, whether it's food or exercise or friendships. You know, we can outgrow sexual practices, we can develop new sexual practices. It's personal choice, of course.
Well, I think we're coming to the end of this episode. Thank you so much for being with us today. If you'd like to read more about what we've been talking about, then please do visit our website, thesexandrelationshipspodcast.com. Yep, that's it. thesexandrelationshipspodcast.com.
Yeah, and we thought it would be quite interesting, didn't we, that whilst today's been quite general, we've been talking about what sex is and what it means to different people. What we're going to do now, I think, is we're going to have chats about common sexual problems that we work a lot with in our practice. And they will include things like arousal and how and why people, no matter what sex or gender they are, they can become aroused in different ways and at different times. Other common problems that we will be chatting about, things like ejaculatory problems, communication, that's one that always is around. And that's how to communicate well, but also how to do conflict better as well, because obviously managing conflict is big in terms of what we do. We'll be talking about orgasmic problems, we'll be talking about pain in sex, and anything and everything really that we can think of that we work with commonly with our clients.
Absolutely, absolutely. And if, while you're listening to us, there's anything that you would really love us to talk about, do get in touch. We're really up for responding to any kind of subject you guys would like to hear us talk about. It's been lovely chatting, Janet. Until next time, bye-bye.
Bye, Claire. See you next time.